Hello and welcome back to Backstage at the Clubrooms, the podcast where we chat all things theatre, chaos and everything in between. I'm Chloe, your host and social secretary, and today's episode is a little bit different because we're officially entering the something is brewing phase of a production. We don't have a cast, we haven't had auditions, we've not had any rehearsals, we're just going off vibes. And you know what, it's very exciting. I am joined with the wonderful Beki, who is directing our summer production of The Tempest. And basically, we're just here to have a yap about her vision, pick her brains, and maybe tempt a few people into getting involved. Hi, Beki. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi. I'm good to go on vibes.
Good. I love that. That's what we're here for. So before we get into The Tempest specifically, give us a little bit of an intro to you. What's your background? Why do you want to direct? Who have they got as their director?
Who have they got as their director? Well, if you don't know who I am.
She's like, you should know who I am.
My name is Beki. I've been in Rads for 10, no, longer than 10, maybe like 12 or 13 years. And I've done a bit of everything in Rads, really, apart from costume. Oh, I did costume one of my first shows that I directed for Rads. So but that was just me pulling stuff out, not doing anything like... not doing anything fancy.
Amazing.
So yeah, I've directed, this will be my third full-length show for Rads. I did my one act initially, which was a Victorian melodrama.
Amazing. We love that.
I did Terry Pratchett's Weird Sisters.
Yes,
Rad's first delve into the world of Terry Pratchett.
Amazing.
And then the last show I directed was just before the pandemic, and it was called Rules for Living, and it was a comedy set on Christmas Day.
Amazing.
So
love that. So Shakespeare's obviously quite different to Pratchett and comedy about Christmas Day. So why The Tempest? It's a bold move.
Yeah, it is a bold move, and I've definitely questioned it a little bit since saying like, oh, I'll do it, because I think comedies are definitely more my wheelhouse of directing and also acting, and I always prefer comedies. I think especially because in the rehearsal period, once you get towards that last few weeks of rehearsals, at least if it's a comedy, there's bits that are still funny.
You've not quite lost the will by the time you get to the rehearsal.
No. The Tempest is one of my favourite Shakespeare's. I've always loved things that are fantasy, things that are fantasy-based. Ever since I was a kid, I've loved fantasy books. And yeah, Midsummer Night's Dream, you've got the fairies, but I feel like The Tempest is the ultimate fantasy story. You've got magic, you've got spirits, you've got chaos, basically.
Yeah.
And I think of myself as a very creative person, and I think with Shakespeare, you get to be creative in a way that other plays don't afford you to be.
Yeah.
Modern plays, and of course nothing against modern plays, Rules for Living was a very new play. I think we were one of the first amateur dramatic societies in the country to do it.
Yeah.
Wow. But you're acting off that scriptwriter's vision. Then they will put their stage directions in, and yes, you can adapt it and you need to work around the space that we're using anyway, but I feel with Shakespearean scripts you can afford to be more creative and to play with them, and nobody's going to mind if you make some cuts, and nobody's going to really question if you set it in an odd time period. And I think I'm getting to play with that, and I just love the script.
Yeah, because we've discussed this before. We've said how much you love this script, and I learnt the other day that Beki actually has a tattoo of one of the
quotes. Yeah,
and I was like, oh my god, she's like not just like, she doesn't just like this, she's like hardcore likes this play. Like that's a commitment. But I love that. I love that. It's nice when you've got like exactly that with Shakespeare. It does give you that freedom to sort of adapt and change it. It's not like you're stuck with a setting or a place or a time. You can change it up a bit, which is nice.
And several people have said to me, what time period are you setting this in? And I'm like, I'm not. There isn't a specific time period because they're washed up on this island. Some of the inhabitants have always been on the island. And so I think we can afford to just play around a bit and make the costumes fantastical as well. And I don't think it needs to be like, oh, we're setting it in the 1950s. Oh, we're setting it in the 1800s.
Yeah, I love that. So obviously we've just discussed it's got magic, betrayal, romance, chaos, all sorts of random. It's such a random mix of themes.
It's funny as well. It's really funny. It is a comedy. There are, obviously you have your traditional comic characters in it, which, you know, the play's kind of like, oh, and now we go over to the comic relief for a bit.
Thank God.
But there's other bits. There's a hilarious bit where the two lovers, Miranda and Ferdinand, are basically like looking wildly into each other's eyes and just been like telling each other how much they've madly fallen in love at first sight. And Prospero stood behind them, and at one point he basically says, God help if these guys ever have kids, their kids are going to be idiots. And it's really funny.
I love that. So, okay, we've sort of touched base not really on the story yet. So for anyone who hasn't heard it, read it since like school or like ever, can you give us a quick, like, no pressure, easy to understand summary?
People keep asking me this.
Like, what actually is it, Beki? Tell us what it is.
So, before the play starts, there's this guy called Prospero. He is the Duke of Naples, and he, rather than ruling properly, devotes all his time to books and learns magic. He kind of says to his brother, Alonso, you run the kingdom for me. Alonso thinks, well, why am I doing this? Usurps Prospero, sends him off in a boat with his daughter, his baby daughter, and they land on an island, which he takes over. Then the play starts 15 years later.
Right. There we go.
12 years later.
Prequel.
So the play begins with this massive storm, and basically Alonso and all of his court are travelling past the island. Prospero spots them and is like, oh, I can get my revenge now. So he creates this massive storm. The shipwreck's on the island, but he makes sure that everybody is safe. He then basically splits the crew up into different groups on the island and wreaks havoc on them for the play, manipulates them. There's a spirit who is basically his slave, along with Caliban, who is another slave. And he uses Ariel and Ariel's powers as a spirit to basically just confuse people, scare people. But, of course, because it is a Shakespearean comedy, we have the young lovers. So there is Ferdinand, who is the Duke's son, and he gets separated from everybody, stumbles across Miranda, falls wildly in love with her.
Standard. Typical Shakespeare.
And it all ends all neatly because it's a comedy, so nobody dies, everybody survives, there's a wedding, and everybody decides to go home to Naples.
Awesome. That was perfect. It's Shakespeare, but make it digestible. We love that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that was quite as good as Spark Notes, but I gave it a shot.
Hey, who needs Spark Notes when we have a Beki? We'll be back in a moment with more of Beki's vision for how she's going to bring the Tempest to life. Fancy supporting RADS and getting a little something back? Join the RADS Friends scheme. It's a great way to help keep live theatre thriving in Richmond. As a friend, you'll get a monthly newsletter, your name in our show programmes, and exclusive access to our club nights and activities. All that for just £12 a year or £20 per couple, due every 1st of June. Whether you're a current member or just a loyal audience regular, we'd love to have you as a friend of RADS. To find out more or join, just contact our Friends and Membership Secretary, Gregan Davis. You'll find all the details on our website or in the show notes below. Thanks for supporting local theatre. Now, back to the episode. Welcome back. So this is what I'm really nosy about. So what we've obviously said, we're not setting it in a particular time frame, but I've seen, and members will have seen in the newsletter for a while now, you've been collecting some driftwood.
Yeah.
So what's the vibe, Beki? What are we going for? Modern, traditional? Obviously we're not doing time, but somewhere in between. What is the vibe? Beki just for anybody, obviously you can't see us right now, but Beki just looked at me as if she'd be like, Oh my God, what?
It was the hand motion that you did with the vibe.
The vibe, I was going like, what do we do with the vibes? Again, you can't see, but I'm sort of waving my arms around like jazz hands, like, what's the vibe? Come on, give me something. I'm excited.
So basically what I want to do is construct a set that looks like it's made entirely out of driftwood.
Amazing.
That's why I've been asking for driftwood for months. How we will actually do it is we will use some of the staging that we have at Rads.
Yeah.
And we will mask that staging with driftwood.
With you.
And we will layer, you know, those kind of like cheap rattan beach mats you always used to have on holiday.
Yeah.
So like those are along the top of it to make it look like it's a piece of natural furniture almost.
Yeah.
But that will encompass kind of Prospero's cell and give us space for the rest of the island. I've also I'm hoping to get hold of a sky cloth that has a kind of stormy grey sky that we used in Weird Sisters. And that will kind of serve as a backdrop. The wonderful Bryn, who's worked backstage on quite a few shows, is going to be building my set.
Amazing.
Had a meeting with him last week and he didn't freak out when I told him my visions. So
that's a really good sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, my plan is for the set to look like it could have been created by things that have washed up on the island over the years.
That.
So it might be still a case of like there's bits of like rope interwoven with the set. I want to get pampas grass to kind of like put into it. So there is still some kind of like sort of like natural growth to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I'm hoping it will look.
Sounds really good. And I think it's one of those, like we've said, we can play with the visuals, we can play with the atmosphere, but equally keeping that like natural tone behind it is quite nice, because if it's obviously it's very heavily like magically chaos. So it's quite nice to have something that's quite grounding with the set.
Yeah. And I want the audience to feel like they're on the island with us.
Yeah.
And so my hope is to use projections as part of it. Certainly at the start with white waves and things like that, and later on possibly more sort of like almost like woodland foresty kind of projections. And Tony from the theatre is going to be doing the lights, so I'm excited to see what he creates with that. But what I also want to do, and I think this will be a bit of a challenge for me to make sure I've got enough of it, but also maybe a bit of a challenge to the actors, is having sound all the way through it.
Yeah.
So there will always be noises of the island or possibly music, just as like slight
ambience.
Yeah. Which the actors will have to obviously speak against and be able to project over. It won't be super loud in places, but it also allows you, if you have music all the way through, you then get to play with silence.
Yeah.
And I love silence in plays.
Yeah.
Where everything stops. And you make, and you can use it for both ways. You can use it for comedic effect and you can use it for dramatic effect. And I've done both. And I think it's a skill. I've worked with actors over the years that you get nervous.
Yeah.
You want to feel that silence.
Silence is scary when you're up there. But I think, like you say, it's a tool that if you can do it and you can pull it off, it's amazing what it can, the sort of effect it can give off.
Yeah, because I mean, even if you're, if you're out walking and like there's always background noise, there's birds singing, there's cars going past. If everything suddenly went silent,
it's unnerving, isn't it?
Yeah, and I want to play with that.
Yeah, no, that's really cool as well, because, and like you say, realistically, they're on an island, so they're gonna have like wave noises, and especially post storm, it's not going to be silent, is it? There's rustling all the time. So yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. It sounds awesome. There's a lot of there's quite a few characters. How many characters did we decide? 15?
15.
15. Is there any that particularly you're very excited about bringing to life?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm really excited for Caliban. I think Caliban can be an underrated character. He's a horrible character. He's awful. But I'm really hoping that I get somebody that's quite into sort of more bringing a physicality to him.
Yes.
And so it's not just somebody stood on stage and somebody maybe that's keen to play with their body as well. What I want through this is working obviously within the cast's capabilities is to really focus on how we are using our bodies in the story as well. I think sometimes we can get really focused on the words, and I think this play as well, certain characters much more than others, Caliban and Ariel being two of them.
Yeah.
I want to really work on their physicality and their movement and how they use the stage space.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Caliban's probably the one I'm excited about.
Because it's every role has something really like juicy going on. Like there's no role that isn't important. Like everybody adds so much to the story. So it's going to be really, I'm really excited for you to see like everybody like all coming together, because that can be really special when you get the cast.
Yeah, and what I want to do as well is, so that of course there's always going to be bigger parts and smaller parts, and some of the smaller parts there's some goddesses that come in, but I'm really looking at bringing them into other scenes as well, to have them involved in shaping the way that the island is.
Yeah.
And adding that atmosphere and adding, you know, tension in a scene if it's needed or whatever. So yeah, I'm excited.
So exciting. So for anyone listening and thinking, oh, that sounds nice. We've obviously not had auditions yet. We haven't had our workshops yet. So Beki, in true Beki fashion, decided that a read-through wasn't enough. And she wanted to do some workshops instead, which is a fabulous way of getting everybody to grips with the script, especially with Shakespeare, because it's a nightmare to sit and read initially, especially for maybe new members or members that haven't done Shakespeare before. To sit and look at a Shakespeare script at a read-through is really daunting because it doesn't make a lot of sense initially at surface value. So what is the deal with the workshops? What can people expect when they get here? What are we doing?
Yeah, well, I just want to reiterate your point really, guys. I mean, I dislike sight reading. Any kind of script. So I really dislike sight reading Shakespeare because I'm just like, I don't know what I'm saying. Why is the punctuation like that?
It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare grammatically as well, because you read it and you go, well, that's not right.
You've got to get that rhythm right. And I will say, actually, before I get on to the workshop, my plan is that the first few rehearsals that we have, we are just going to sit down as a cast and we are just going to go through that script with a fine-tooth comb so everybody understands what they're saying before we even get up and block it. So even if you aren't sure about Shakespeare, never done Shakespeare before, I got your back.
We've got you sorted. she's gonna you will get it. You will understand what you're saying. Because it's so important, because a lot of things in Shakespeare at face value mean something totally different to what the actual meaning is. And the audience don't have the pleasure of sitting in the club rooms with a fine-tooth comb and understanding what it is. They've got one shot at watching, and
if you don't realise your character is being sarcastic or devious at a point, then you can't bring that character to life properly. So we're going to sit, we'll do the script, and then we'll get up and then we'll block it and bring the physicality in, because I think if you've got that understanding, it makes everything else easier.
Absolutely, it does.
But anyway, back to the workshops. So my plan is to start off with, I will do a little bit of an overview of the Tempest, explain the story for those that haven't listened to this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
And explain a bit about my vision as well.
Yeah.
And then we are going to look at the first scene, which is the scene on the ship, as it is getting shipwrecked. And we're going to basically split off into groups, and we're going to take a couple of lines from that scene and we're going to devise round those lines and imagine what minor characters would be reacting to in that.
Yeah.
Or they said, and I'm certainly not going to ask people to fake Shakespeare it through. I mean, if people want to, that
would be exciting to see, actually.
Amazing. But we don't do a lot of devising in RADs. And I think it's a very useful tool. It allows us to be creative. I'm a big believer in playing, as in playing with the script, playing around with
Yeah.
stuff. And I hope that whilst we rehearse the Tempest, we get a chance to play with it.
Yeah.
And that's basically what I want to do in the workshop. I know that sounds quite vague, but I want people to take a line from the script, say the bosun shouting at Alonso and various other, characters, telling them to get back down below because it's dangerous. If you're playing a minor crew member in that scene, how would you react to that point?
Yeah.
And I think that because unless you are a named character in that first scene, everybody else will be in it for just as extras, as extra mariners. So, I think it's a good chance to kind of focus on the minor characters for a minute. How are they feeling about this? This ship's falling apart. It's not their fault.
You be freaking out?
Yeah.
It's and it's nice to be able to, like you say, to have a play around with the script. And because quite often we start rehearsals and it's very much like okay, let's go, time, we need to block and we need to do this. It's quite nice to have a workshop and able to make and allow for people to have a play around with it and be like, oh yeah, actually, what would they think here? What would this happen? And that's a really nice way of doing it. It's nice as well because it's a very low pressure way of getting to grips with the vibes and the script, and it's not super intense.
Yeah, and there's nothing, and when you devise stuff, you can't be wrong.
Yeah.
You're just putting your thought into it.
Yeah.
If you decided that your devising is going to end with you throwing the bosun overboard, sure.
You do you, hon, you do you.
We might not bring that bit into the actual show, but
I don't know. I feel like chucking someone in the boxes. That would be a good idea. Way off you go. That's so funny. So obviously that's the workshop. Then the auditions. The audition information is all out on the website already.
Yep.
But what can they expect for that? Is it a similar vibe? Is it?
No. So the auditions will be a little bit more formalised. On the website, I've divvied up all the parts and the audition pieces. I may ask people to read other audition pieces as well as ones that they've chosen. But I'll try and keep it as casual as possible. It'll be a case of everyone else can just be, mill around, make a cup of tea.
Yeah.
You want to watch people audition, that's fine. But and we'll try and get through it fairly swiftly.
Amazing.
I know a lot of people aren't fans of just standing up and reading a bit of Shakespeare, but
needs must in this case.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. So basically, what you should be hearing is get yourself there, come to the workshop, come to the auditions, and throw your hat in the ring, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Love that. We'll be back in a minute with our final round, which is, as ever, our quick fire. Get yourself ready, Beki. Looking for a fun way to spend a Monday evening? Come along to our monthly Rads Club Nights, held on the second Monday of every month at the Clubrooms. Whether you're a seasoned performer or just theatre curious, everyone's welcome, member or not. We've got all sorts of drama-filled fun, from script read-throughs to games, workshops and more. It's relaxed, it's social, it's theatrical, and we'd love to see you there. Keep an eye on our socials for times and themes, and come and join the Rads madness. Welcome back. So before we wrap up, we're going to do our very serious, very professional quick-fire round. Mm-hmm. Are you ready? 5 questions, rapid-fire responses. Are you ready?
I'm going to try and be.
Okay, question 1. Favourite character?
Caliban.
Ooh. If your Tempest had a warning label, what would it say?
If my Tempest had a warning label.
If your production of Tempest had a warning label, what would it say?
Warning, chaos.
Love that. Which role would you love to play if you could?
Ariel.
Favourite moment in the script?
When Caliban thinks that some spirits have come to torture him, so he disguises himself, but it's Trinculo and Stefano who are the 2 comic characters. One who's a jester, one who's a drunk, and Trinculo hides in with Caliban, and Stefano thinks he's come across a 2-headed monster.
Amazing.
I cannot wait to block that scene. I'm really excited for it. It's just really stupid. And then, Trinculo says something, and he's like, this monster sounds like Trinculo. What?
Oh my God.
It's so silly.
Amazing. Love that. And finally, One word to describe your version of directing and your entire method for this show.
Collaborative.
Love that. That's amazing. Okay, that was a really good quickfire round.
Hey!
Well done. Massive thank you to Beki for joining me today and giving us a little sneak peek into what's to come. If you're listening and thinking you want to get involved, keep an eye on socials for audition and workshop announcements. Workshop is the
13th of April.
13th of April. I was like, it's the 12th. No, it's not. It's the 13th of April, which is in like 3 weeks, which is really, really exciting.
Yeah.
So get yourself to the workshop, 7:30 at the Clubrooms, 13th of April. And yeah, keep an eye out. Thank you, Beki. And as always, thanks for listening. See you next time. Bye-bye.